Welcome back to another episode of Excuse My Grandma. It's Kim and my co-host,
Grandma Gail.
Guys, we are joined by Hena Doba. She is an anchor for Cheddar News. She's a former breaking news correspondent for CBS. And I'm just so impressed with her. I used to work with her at Cheddar for about 2 years. And I produced for her. We did hits together as a reporter. And she's just amazing. So for Hena, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And by the way, I want to tell your viewers, you were phenomenal, a fantastic writer. We miss you at Cheddar News every single day. You are such a talent.
Thank you.
You're the best, Hena.
Grandma once came as a field trip.
I
to
did.
the
I loved
office.
it. I loved it.
Yeah.
When the office was open, that was 2019.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
What did you think?
Oh, I loved it. First of all, I loved the location, looking out at the Statue of Liberty. It was such a pretty office. And I loved the camaraderie that was in the office. Unfortunately, what happened in 2020 was the end of that.
So I want to go back a little bit, just for people who don't know. Can you share your age, relationship status, and where you are living?
Nobody's older than I am, so don't worry about it.
I'm in my 40s. I was born and raised in Queens, New York. I'm first generation. My parents moved here from Pakistan a few months before I was born, for the simple reason they wanted a better opportunity for their kids. My mom had an arranged marriage when she was 16. My dad was 32. So it's just, my family knew that's not what they wanted for me and my brothers. Well, their children. So yeah, I'm the oldest, I'm the only girl, and they moved here to New York City. I currently live in Greenwich, Connecticut. So quite the change from Queens.
It's beautiful.
Greenwich, Connecticut. I love Greenwich. I really do. I love coming to New York City to work, but I love going home at night as well.
We lived in Greenwich for a while, my husband and I. Am actually the best butcher in the world for people who are listening to this. It was in Armonk, and he had the best Italian sausages in the world. I don't know if he's still there.
Remember the name?
No, it was on the main street. There was only one little butcher store, and he was terrific. I could still smell them grilling on the grill. They
Probably closed like 40 years ago.
Maybe.
And I promise, if he's still there or that shop is still there, I will get sausages and get it to you guys as soon as possible. I promise.
Okay.
And did you say how long you've been married?
Oh God, yeah. No, I didn't. I've been married for 8 years to a wonderful guy named Andrew. He's in PR, so we kind of met through work. I have a lovely stepson. He's 12 now. He thinks he's 20. He's 12 going on 20. I met him when he was just 3 years old. So I've known him his whole life. I love that child.
That's
so,
great.
His name is
What is it like being in a similar industry as your partner? Because I feel like people can love that because you can kind of bounce ideas off each other, or it's like too close to home.
I'm glad it wasn't news. I'm glad he wasn't on air, because then he'll tell me if I'm being vain or stupid or this story is so dumb or handle yourself a little bit better. I think if we were news, I'm just knowing me, I would be competitive if he got a better job than me or better story. And that's just my own insecurity. That's not a good thing. But for me personally, I like that he understands when I say, and Kim, these phrases, packages or stories or what interview I'm doing. But I love that he doesn't compete with me for a certain interview.
I would take the jargon we were using in the newsroom and be saying it to my friends in daily life, and they'd say something to me, I'd be like, okay, copy that. And they'd be like, what, are you a spy? I'm confused.
And you think you're still a spy, Kimmy.
Yeah, I'm really good at stalking guys. That's why you say that.
I like them. And by the way, it's their loss. Any guy would be lucky to have you. You say copy that. I say stand by. That's my thing.
So funny. So how did you first get into journalism, and how did you kind of know you were on the right path?
Well, because I'm Pakistani and because I was first generation, my parents, as you know, especially back then, there weren't many women who looked like me on TV. Everyone was a doctor or engineer. So my parents told me growing up, you're going to be a doctor, and that's that. And I kind of accepted it, right? Because sure, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, especially in high school. So we grew up in a lower income neighborhood. So I always knew I was going to pay for my own college. And so I went to the SUNY system in Buffalo, where I was a pre-med, hated it, but kept doing it. And I was paying for my own education. So I actually was focusing. And then I just started writing for the school paper on a whim for fun. And that's where my love for journalism began. But again, I never thought in a million years I would be in front of the camera. So I got a job at a TV station in Watertown, New York, as the ABC affiliate as a producer. Again, no one ever talked to me about being on camera. It wasn't anything that happened. And this shows my age. I just happened to be in New York City visiting my family on September 11th. When that happened, I picked up my camcorder and just I was in Queens, but tried to make my way to Manhattan. And I was just on a camcorder. So you show us how old this was. It was my camcorder. So I was interviewing people about what was happening and what do you think? And that's when honestly my career in front of the TV began. And my next jump was Savannah, Georgia, which was, okay, so Watertown, New York is a tiny, tiny market.
Right.
It's 8 hours, 500 miles away from here. So when I went to Savannah, Georgia, the news director told me, you're never going to be on TV here. I hate producers who are trying to get on TV. Just accept that that's not, you're being hired as a producer. And I said, yes, I wanted a job. And for 3 months, I did just that. But then I went to him, I'm like, I'll come in on my own on the weekends. I'll shoot my own stuff. If you want to air it, air it. If you don't want to air it, don't air it. Savannah is a small enough market where they're just happy for any kind of content, and they're not paying me. So I would just come in every Saturday and Sunday. And I don't know if you guys remember, those cameras were like 50 pounds. I'm like, you guys.
I couldn't do that job ever. Like as an intern, I was like so bad because that was like our main job, and I was in pain at the end of the day. Like you can't.
Yeah. It's heavy. Anyway, but that's how I ended up on TV. But the goal was always coming back home. New York City was the goal, but I got a job in Connecticut, and that's where I eventually met my husband. I became an anchor there, and then luckily got a job at CBS New York.
Yeah, well, that's a good path.
Yeah,
you hit all the steps.
Yeah, and I feel like you kind of have to have that tenacious personality and persevere, especially in this industry. And I'm sure you had a lot of hurdles. I'm curious, like, what struggles you kind of have gone through as a woman of color, and maybe even still go through if you feel like there are any boundaries or obstacles.
I don't think there are any boundaries anymore. I think she's doing great.
Luckily, thank you. Thank you. 9/11 was a little tough because where I was in Watertown, New York, it was also a military town. So a lot of those soldiers were being deployed to Iraq. So there was obviously a lot of anger and fear. And I understand that. So there were, my news director actually and I wasn't allowed to use my last name. My last name was Wolfenbar. So they made me change it. I just picked Daniels from a hat because Hena Daniels. I don't even know why I said Daniels. It was one of those things. And it was my name for about 15 years until I got to Cheddar, actually. And, my news director would get calls. Why is a terrorist telling me the news? And then,
because you have to realize, Kimmy, at the time, Pakistan was certainly on the top of the list of countries that we were worried about, and which actually bin Laden we killed in. So, I mean, it was it's very tough for Hena to carry on her family name in this industry. But now, thank heavens, that period is past.
I don't think any news director would tell anyone to change their name.
Exactly.
I really don't. In fact,
I think you're right.
Encourage it. I really do.
I think so too.
Come a long way.
Yeah.
But, so it was things like that. Luckily, my news director, though, for such a small market, and forget about just being Pakistani, there was no one of color in that market, in front of the camera or behind. So I love that my news director actually made the decision, like, no, and I wasn't, I was new, I wasn't very good either, but he made the decision, like, no, I'm going to keep her on air. And thank God he did, especially because I think I also bring that born here element too.
Right. Correct.
I was born and raised here, and that many Pakistani
that perspective.
Right. They didn't have that perspective. So I think there are a few things that always set me apart. And Grandma Gail, you probably know this, as you get older, you realize, like, oh, that happened for a reason. Things just happen in your life that clicked.
Do you ever look back at old clips of yourself and you're like, how, like, I've changed so much? Or do you feel like what is that reaction?
Send you a picture. I'll just say there was a lot of blue eyeshadow. I did not know what I was doing. I have really curly hair. No, I was a disaster. And, delivery comes after, it takes time to work up delivery. It takes time to ask the question right. Or, move from a joyous story to a really terrible one. And I was in the field for a really long time. Right. So for me, I've experienced the best moments of their lives, but also some of the most tragic.
Listen, we're living through a time now where I don't even know how you present the news half the time on the television. It's so sad. You have to filter some of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, especially when you're knocking on these doors, you have to be conscious, like, this person is going through the worst moment of their life, whatever it is. And not everyone can walk that fine line. It really takes time to figure it out. Like, this is not just my deadline, my news story. This is someone's life. Right. I think those are the things that really separate journalists and people who just want to be on TV.
Mm-hmm. And so now, I mean, as an anchor, you cover everything, but do you have a favorite beat that you like to do, whether it's like politics or entertainment?
I think you know this about me, or I love breaking news. I just love breaking news. I love being in the middle of it. I'm an anchor now, but whenever there's so there's some kind of breaking news, I actually ask them, like, send me to the field. I want to be in the middle of it all. There's just that adrenaline that I think that just keeps going. So till this day, and I was in fact, at CBS News, they actually created breaking news correspondent for me because they realized how much I loved it thrived in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been breaking news. And I'm so glad I stuck with that because that's not the typical direction that journalists say. They do like politics, but I just thrived on the scene. I love being there. So till this day, it's breaking news. And if you think about it, 9/11 was my first real story. And
it's breaking news.
The biggest news story of all. Right?
Yeah.
It sounds like the scariest thing to do, breaking news. Like,
well, it's the most exciting. Like
no,
Hena
but I
said.
feel like
I
it's
think
scary. You're not prepared. You have to someone's in your ear kind of telling you what to say, or you're doing the research as it's happening. Like, I would always be so impressed. Like, I'd be in the control room. They'd say something's breaking. Hena would already be on top of it. Like, have been looking at Twitter or social media or articles or whatever it is, and then and talk for 5 minutes.
Well, that's
straight.
her talent.
I know,
that's
but
why she's the head anchor.
Talk to me if you saw me 15 years ago, Kim, that would not be the case. I think the hardest part for breaking news is making sure you get the right information out. We hear those things all the time. A reporter says something wrong that's not factual, which is not there. I mean, they're on Twitter, and nowadays, especially, you're being bombarded by so many social media outlets and so many reporters. The toughest thing is, and the most important, is make sure your information
is correct.
Yes, that's the number one thing. Especially when I was in the field and there was breaking news where I didn't have time to do my makeup or hair, that was fine. As long as my information was correct, I didn't care what I looked like. So that's why it's so important to build those sources. And even if, and even on Twitter or TikTok or whatever it is, trust those sources. Know where the information is coming from.
Yeah.
Do you fact check before you go on a story? I mean, is there such an app as that? Do you quickly fact check it?
If AP News is reporting something, like every news network kind of has a source that they are trusting. As long as when we go on and we're saying according to the Associated Press.
And you see that with reports, according to ABC or according to AP News, you do want to kind of, if you're getting it from them and not your own source, you definitely want to say it's coming from this person.
Right now we're in a time where I feel like news, it's very hard to stay nonpartisan.
Well, I don't think there is any nonpartisan. When I was growing up, when I was in my early 20s, we had Walter Cronkite was, the lead he was truly a journalist. And he really, even though he had a bias, there was, later on, we knew what his bias was. But at the time, we didn't really know what those head anchors were. We didn't know if they were left. We didn't know whether it was right. Now you turn into Fox, you have one point of view. You do ABC or NBC, it's another, or CNN. And I find it, I don't know if journalism schools, how do they approach that? In other words, is it still being taught that we're supposed to be neutral or give the facts out, or is it just a matter of fact that someone's going to put their own bias in the stories?
Two things in J school. The most common thing was, one, don't make sure the story's not about yourself. It's about more. It's not you, it's the story. And two, you can't be biased. And I feel like that's kind of gone out the window. How many people on air do we know? Like somehow the story's about them and not what they're covering. So I feel like you're right. And as far as biases in these different networks, it's just a continuation of an echo chamber that you want to be in.
Right.
So if you're leaning left, of course you're going to go to those stations. If you're leaning right, you're going to go to those stations.
But I think it's sad. Isn't there anything in between? I mean, I would almost like to just hear the news. I don't want to hear the anchor's opinion anymore.
Or you could have a separate show that's like a talker piece.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I don't even know if that exists anymore. I don't think, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Twitter, with all these things in the news now. It's very, very interesting because, people are dying for the truth. First of all, half the people don't believe anything anymore, which is so sad, no matter who says it. Don't you think so, Hena?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think people are a lot more skeptical on wherever they get news from. Unless there's a Fox person who watches NBC or CNN hates that anchor and vice versa. No, I'm with you. I don't know how it's going to change, but it is very sad. I hate that there's not a go-to because now everyone just goes to who they trust.
And not only that, we don't even trust the doctors. We don't even trust the people who are supposed to be the CDC. Who trusts any? I don't trust any of them anymore.
I trust you.
Well, you and I are trusting each other.
Yeah, I trust you.
I mean, you know what? It's very sad though, because as an adult who's gone through a lot of this, you want to see a person of authority tell you what really is honest. I don't want to know what his opinion is.
And then you decide. The viewer decides.
Exactly.
I couldn't agree more.
Well,
and there are very few journalists that still do that. The market, as you well know, is so saturated
Right.
that you're just trying to stick out. So now it's even become a form of entertainment.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It's just more interesting to watch people either like having arguments or like having some sort of opinion. But like if you want fights or like turn on Bravo, like you don't.
Exactly.
That's not what the news is about. So.
And if I knew that's how it turned out, I would never have gotten in news. But no one would have known. It kind of just
Right. It's just evolved.
And also it's still like the most important. I mean, think about COVID. Like everyone just were glued to their TVs. That's their only source of information. So it still has to exist. Like people who say news is like a dying industry, like
It'll never be.
No.
It'll never be.
Somewhere in the middle again, and be able to understand and empathize with the people who are telling us the story. We haven't had characters that you could really attach yourself to and really look up to. And I think that's been a problem.
Mm-hmm. I'm also curious how COVID has kind of changed the way that the newsroom is, both because I feel like I see you sitting in the office now. It's not packed with people. At this point, is it 100% back any days, or what is the
It's
update?
here at Cheddar, at least, and most newsrooms that I know, anchors, reporters are typically coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And production teams, but a lot of people work hybrid. Sometimes they come in twice a week. I think at least here at Cheddar, a lot of people come in twice a week. And honestly, that's very different, Kim, as you well know. A newsroom never worked like that. 24/7, there was someone in the newsroom. But I'm okay with this. As long as people are getting their job done, I don't care where you're working. For anchors, though, when I was working from home that month, I hated it. I felt like I was in a college production. The kids and dogs were fighting. My husband's asking where the pasta was. I couldn't focus on the news. So I personally love to be in a studio. I need that feel around me. But that is a huge change. No one worked from home.
And like, you said, like, when you were in the industry in the beginning, like you had to have those conversations with your boss of like, put me on TV, whatever. Like you can't really have I had a boss at Cheddar who gave me a chance too. And like, I don't think I could have, like, especially with going on air, the tech element adds a lot of anxiety. Like that already, like as an anchor, you don't need any more anxiety. You're already doing like a lot of work, and to be there and be like, is my Wi-Fi gonna fail? Can they hear me on the other side? Like
you're doing it. It just isn't going to be the same for younger people coming into the industry.
Do you have any advice for aspiring journalists who want to get into this field?
You're going to hate this advice. Well, you're not, because you guys get it, but people typically do. And if someone told me this 10 years ago, I would have gotten so mad. Social media, guys. I hate it. It's all about social media now. How many of us are running home for the 5 or 6 o'clock news? No one is doing that anymore. Our kids certainly aren't going to be doing it. You need to have that social media presence. And I'm not saying you need to have thousands and thousands of followers. It will help. But I think just becoming that reliable voice on Twitter or TikTok, and I hate saying that. I really do.
Well, we love it.
Yeah, that's the only way we make money. So
it's the only way we're making a living. So it's amazing. It's amazing. I didn't even know what TikTok was. Yeah. I mean, honest to God. I mean, till Kimmy introduced this to me 8 months ago. But this is a whole world unto itself. A whole world unto itself.
I think for me, like, I just want to create content, and the content that I love was a little bit more like lifestyle focused. So for me, like, TikTok ended up being a really good place to create content, and that's where my following our following really grew. Whereas I feel like when I was posting like clips when I was working in news, like it was harder to grow in that way, because maybe it's not quite the same format. I don't know. Everyone's a little bit different, but
authenticity comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
This comes out. You can tell somebody's really enjoying this versus someone who's just kind of going on camera to talk about whatever.
Totally.
I think that shows. Viewers know.
I don't know what the audiences are on TV anymore, Hena. Have they drastically gone down, or is it pretty steady, or what?
Networks are suffering. No one's watching, not just network news, network TV in general. Everyone's going to their streamers. And actually, we have somebody from the metaverse on today, and told me that they're starting a news station in the metaverse.
No way.
That's what's going to happen.
And she actually gave me her card. She's like, no, we're going to be looking. So it's just changing, Kim.
Yeah.
I'll forward you the information later.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about relationships because this is a dating podcast. What is it like being a stepmom? I know because we haven't really taken that angle yet with any of our guests. So I would love to appeal to those people who are listening and kind of if you can share your experience with that.
So I'm a little different, especially for first generation Pakistani. Mm-hmm. I knew very young, like I said, I grew up, in lower income homes, but both my parents were working almost 24 hours. So I raised my younger brothers. I had 3 younger brothers. So I love children, but I always knew, and my mom's like, even before you knew how children were conceived, I said at a young age, I don't want kids. I just don't want kids. And that really stayed with me through college in my early 20s, even when I met my now husband, but he knew he didn't want any more children. He had a son, Henry.
That was perfect.
And then and I'm like, I love children. I don't want any kids, which by every relationship I was in would end, because obviously I get it. A man wants to start a family, and every woman he was dating, I think same thing, because every woman, they want to start a family. So we connected on that. But with that said, I still don't want any biological children, but with Henry, and I met him when he was 3, I understand the joy of Christmas morning now. Mm-hmm. There are things, getting Halloween, it looks like my house threw up. I totally get into these things, and I love it. I love having a stepson. I have no regrets about not having my own child.
We have something in our family that's similar. Yeah, I mean, if you're a wonderful stepmom, the relationship is he really has 2 moms, and it really is a very beautiful thing, and the child benefits very well from that kind of relationships.
It's very much a co-parenting situation. Yeah. His mom, Henry's mom, and her husband live 10 minutes away from us. So at Henry's baseball games or soccer games, the 4 of us are always standing together.
Terrific.
For Henry's birthday, we always go out to dinner to just show that we're all here. I love it. He's like, hey, Hena, can you call mama and get my iPad? I love that that's there. I think
that's great.
Things are really, really important. And by the way, though, even when I moved to Greenwich, I remember I went to, I'm like, it's a new city. Not many people look like me here. I went to a therapist, and I'm not going to say the therapist's name, but I looked at her. She was on, a lot of news channels. I'm like, she understands TV. She told me, she's like, you're never going to make friends here because you're in the burbs and you don't have biological children. You make friends through school.
Well, harder.
She gave me cards for fertility clinics. I don't think they believe me.
Oh my God.
I never. She's like, Cornell and Columbia, they have, and which I'm sure they do, but I think people don't understand.
Right.
Or just they can't comprehend that maybe a woman really genuinely loves kids,
but doesn't want to have her own. Right. Okay. I get it.
So you said your parents had an arranged marriage?
They did. My mom was 16. My dad was 32. He was a student here at NYU, actually.
And they're still married?
No.
They're not.
Soon after. No, they got divorced.
Oh.
Also very different for me as a Pakistani child. Everyone's parents were together. I think my mom was just always a little bit more Americanized. So 5 years in, she's like, they were the age difference. I mean, that just
right.
Doesn't work. So no, we're all in the tri-state. I wish I could say, they get along. They don't talk to each other at all.
Okay.
Like me and, Henry's mom, we're fine. But I think that I also kept that in mind. I'm like, I remember how my parents were. I never want to be like that in front of somebody else's child. Right. But one thing I will say, because my mom had an arranged marriage at 16, she was divorced. She was divorced by 21 with 2 kids in the ghetto Queens projects. But one thing my mom always said to me, especially, she's like, education is key. She's like, if I had an education, no one would have forced me to get married. Right. So I think she did kind of back down on like, I'm going away to college. I was very lucky. My mom's like, don't ever depend on a man. You need to make your own money. And that's when like, I can, I've been working since I was 14. I'm like, do you want me to keep working at a McDonald's, or do you want me to actually go get an education and focus on my own career? And she luckily
supportive.
So there's been recent headlines saying that you're rumored to join the Real Housewives of New York. I want to know what you can share with us on that and the process.
Honestly, you guys know as much as me. The Page 6 article dropped. I can honestly say everything's factual in it. They did reach out to me. The conversation was ongoing, but I also know they've reached out to many, many amazing women in New York. Why my name was released to Page 6, I still have no idea. But honestly, I know as much as you do. I mean, they've reached out to me. They actually, you're going to laugh at this, Kim. They slid into my DMs.
Wow.
That's how they reached out to me. Like, hey,
that's how it's done nowadays.
Yes. They slid into my DMs like, hey, we're so interested. Can you fill out a casting sheet? And I did. And again, I'm sure it's many, many women. And then Page 6 got that information and did a whole article on it.
Can't fool Page 6.
How do they know everything?
I don't know. they've got little spy cameras.
Honestly, I should work for them because I'm a good spy.
You are a good spy. You are a good spy.
Yes.
So, but you think you would do it if given the opportunity?
So I've never seen an episode, and Kim, you know this about me. I'm very much about empowering other women and
For
all of us
sure.
sticking together. And I said that to the woman, the casting director, and she's like, "We're retooling the show. We're changing it completely." And the way we left it, she's like, "Let me come back to you with exactly what we're doing." And that's how we left it. So she hasn't even brought the new pitch to me, but somehow Page Six leaked it. So
Right.
if it's like the old, the normal stuff where, you're flipping tables, I'm not doing it. But if it's a group of women who work and are honest and want to support each other, but I know that's not good TV either.
Remember that.
Conversation continues. You're the first person I'm going to
Okay.
do.
All right.
You guys will get the
Okay.
exclusive.
So I want to end the episode with a game we play with all of our guests called Grandma Gail's Old Fashioned Dating Quiz.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, first one is, would you rather receive a call or a text from your partner if it's just to say hi?
Text.
Sleep with someone on the first date?
Depends on the guy. Is that an okay answer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dating apps or setups?
Setups. I think I met my husband right when the dating apps blew up, and I'm wondering if I missed out.
You didn't miss out. You
Well,
didn't miss
we
out.
have
I think it's the worst thing I ever heard of.
I think they're amazing.
She loves it, and I think they're awful. They're better off to have setups. At least you know something about them before you get into it.
You know plenty about somebody seeing their profile, and then you can check if you have mutual friends with them, and you can cross-reference, and you can.
Okay.
We've talked about it 500 times, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm a fan.
Have you ever been catfished, Kim?
No,
Okay, good.
Hopefully
no,
not.
I haven't. Because I feel like I'll never go if I don't at least have one mutual friend to like say, yes, I know them.
I mean, you are a journalist. You're gonna dig. You're not just gonna
Exactly.
grow up knowing you, right?
Yeah. Move in together before getting engaged or wait until you're engaged to move in?
I moved in before I was engaged. I think nowadays that makes sense.
And who should pay for the date? Should it be one person in a relationship or should you alternate or split?
I'm old fashioned. I think the guys should date, but I know that's not politically correct.
Well, no, I think it's politically correct. I think it depends.
First
Like,
date, I think the guy should pay for it.
yeah, I think if he asked you on the date, like the person who asked should also probably be paying.
If you asked a guy on a date, would you pay?
I don't know a world in which I would be asking a guy on a date, like on a first date.
She's never done that yet.
Or like I would, but it would make it seem like it was their idea. So it would really, yeah, right. So you were pretty split, Hena. I think
she's half and half.
like half and half, old fashioned and modern.
That's right.
That's good.
Knows me pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're terrific.
Tell our listeners how they can follow you.
You can just go on my social media. It's Hena Doba, HENADOBA. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and I'm new to TikTok. Guys, follow me because you are so popular on TikTok.
We hope you guys liked the episode. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Excuse My Grandma if you don't already. And we will see you next week.
Bye.